10 coats of paint stained in tobacco.
Hello there. Welcome to the Adult in the Room podcast live stream. Victoria Taft, your news Sherpa, taking you up on an Epstein Thursday to tell you what the latest headlines are, give you the latest information out there, and enjoy hearing from you. Anybody who's anti-Semitic and anti-Christian, you guys can... We are going to talk about all kinds of things today. Indeed, there are many things to chit-chat with you about. For example, I'm going to take you through the latest on the Epstein matter and why Democrats are having another fit over Pam Bondi. Bondi's being deposed soon. She's been subpoenaed by the Oversight Committee. So we'll tell you a little bit about that, give you a little taste of what the letter says to Pam Bondi. And let's see, NATO steps up on the Strait of Hormuz, and Antifa NGO funding is now being investigated. Interesting. Cannot wait. And Joe Kent. He's the next thing to come up after our Epstein update. We're also going to talk this half an hour with the PI, the private investigator, Niels Gervelius. And one of the reasons I love to have him on is because he's just so plain spoken. He just doesn't pull any punches. If it's out there, he'll just go, bleh, Victoria. And so I want you to be part of it because he's a hoot, and he's going to talk about how is it that all these girls, women, were lured to the Zorro Ranch. That was another Epstein property, and how incredibly odd and disgusting it was. So we'll talk about that because that's also recently in the news. And so I wanted to bring that up for you as well. Okay, so the top line stuff going on this week, more details on the grooming at Zorro Ranch. Okay, that's coming up just a few minutes. Then Democrats want to know why the DEA investigation into Epstein was dropped. That's by the third senator from New York. That's Ron Wyden, who's ostensibly, allegedly the senator, one of two senators from Oregon, but he doesn't live there and he doesn't stay there because his family lives in New York, and that's where he lives. And so there we go. Let's see. Pam Bondi is going to sit for that deposition, a little bit more about that, and aspersions by Ron Wyden against the DOJ, because especially Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 guy at DOJ. So things at DOJ seem to be a little... I mean, I would like to see some more activity from the DOJ. And I know that people who work there at the Department of Justice are working behind the scenes to pull together cases. The problems that they're having are that it takes time. And then the next thing is they are in D.C., so they require a D.C. grand jury to bring indictments, except in the issue of the 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid. And then that's in Palm Beach County. But other than that, you got to go to the D.C. audience. Well, shoot, they're on a huge, it's a big campaign against or in favor of jury nullification. And they're encouraging people to get on juries, to say yes to grand juries, to hide their social media backgrounds, especially if they're activists, to keep their face out, and to encourage them to get on juries so that they can say that bad guys are good guys and fail to indict that individual and or fail to bring the guilty verdict against bad individuals. And it's happening. It's happening. Especially, you see that jury nullification in the grand jury situation in the Washington, D.C. area, where 95% of the people they vote for one party. And so you can imagine some of the nutballs over there. I mean, when you have one party rule, you are allowed, I mean, they're the real wackadoodle-doos come out of the woodwork. And so they are, and they're all trying to get on juries. All right, so here we go. Let us go right now to the letter asking Pam Bondi to be deposed. Now, mind you, they did this after she'd already appeared in Congress to give testimony, which is, by the way, under oath. So it's just like, if you got to depose me, you could do it here. Or whatever. Okay, let's see. How fake? Now the Democrats care about Epstein. Where are their voices from 2020 till 2025? They've been silent. Now they think that there's something to gain. Now they think that there's something to get Trump on. And let me remind you what they have Trump on. Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's jet before he got his own. He flew on it 11 times, or at least he was on the manifest 11 times. And he was never at the island. And he... let's see. What else? Hold on. I have a list. I actually have a list here. Yeah, there's only 3 things on it. So he's in the Epstein files ad nauseum multiple times because, as we've pointed out multiple times before, excuse me, Trump is mentioned in different excuse me. Trump, sorry. Let me just get some from Go Juice, okay? Let's. Thank you. Thank you very much. God, do you suppose I've drunk too much Celsius? Hey, by the way, Celsius, come over here if you want somebody to give you an atta girl on the air. Okay. So this is what they've got on Donald Trump. The Jane Doe rape allegation. Ooh, that sounds terrible. Of course it is. It sounds terrible. And it's fake. And this was an allegedly 13-year-old girl at the time, and says that she and Epstein tried to take her Epstein tried to take her virginity, and then she withdrew her lawsuit and admitted she was lying. Uh-oh. Celsius is not gross. Celsius is great. Why do you say Celsius is gross? It's got fake sugar in it. It's got fake flavoring. It's got 300 milligrams of caffeine, which is exactly what I need. You guys haven't gotten any sleep. It's just been insane. Not that I know nobody cares. I know nobody cares, but I've been traveling in lots of. I'm glad to be awake right now, so I'm excited. In fact, Celsius is keeping me going there, Maddie. So, Celsius is not gross. Okay, because the fake sugar makes it taste gross? No, I don't think so. I think it tastes pretty good because I don't eat a lot of sugar, except if you count my vitamin C things. This is totally inside baseball. I apologize. But I will tell you now that I've already said it. These are my Halls. Halls. They're the vitamin C things, and they're just enough without the menthol to keep things great. It's like diet soda. It tastes like medicine. I like diet soda, but I don't drink a lot of it anymore. This is the only fake stuff I drink, actually. All right. So here's what else they have on Donald Trump, because this is the Epstein Thursday edition, right? A victim was introduced to Donald Trump by Ghislaine Maxwell, with whom Donald Trump and Melania were exposed and were friendly for a while. And they never mentioned, however, the whales and taking and buying the 60% of the ocean that's not currently for sale or under the auspices of other countries, which we went into last week. Because you got to know. You got to have background. People say, Victoria, why are you playing Ghislaine Maxwell? I was like, dude, because she's like the only person around who did something that we can find wrong. Now, why is it that all these allegedly smart people got together with Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we showed you her TEDx talk. We showed you her UN speech. We showed you Hillary Clinton. Go watch last week's Epstein update. 47,000 other people did. So you should probably do that. That was just on the live stream. Okay, so tell your friends. By the way, follow this podcast. Please share it. Encourage others to do so as well. Okay. So as you continue to bring the comments in, so we've got the 13-year-old kid who said, "Oh yeah, I was lying." When they start asking questions, it's like, okay, so that person withdrew everything from this 1980s rape allegation, which had something to do with an Epstein party, like a Diddy party, but it was an Epstein party. And so she withdrew it in 2016. Why? What do you suppose that is? Who was running for president in 2015, 2016? That's right. That would be Donald Trump. Then we have victim intro by Maxwell, and that person fizzled out. Nothing happened, said the victim. There was no touchy-feely. Then the Palm Beach police called. This is when Donald Trump found out that the Palm Beach police were going after Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and he called them and said, thank you, they're terrible, and she's evil. Okay. So he's in there for all of that, as well as, let's see, one more. Oh, yeah. Confirms that Trump flew on Epstein's jet multiple times. Contradicting his never claim. Guess he said he never did it. Maybe he didn't remember. Who knows? Anyway, he has his own plane now. So Trump appears more than 1,800 times in the Epstein files, most of which are, talking about him or clips about him and that sort of thing. Yeah. Let's see. So it's all lies? No, I'm not saying that. I think some of it is, though. And I think that the most compelling thing about the stories about these people are telling is that because we know that, for example, Ro Khanna was beguiled by some of the victims who had previously been co-conspirators. Now, I know you're familiar with this story, so we'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. Let us go first, however, to the letter that the official Oversight Committee sent to Pam Bondi. And this is the way they couched it. It was sent this week. And they did not have to subpoena her. There was no reason to subpoena her. But they did subpoena her because they wanted to make it equal with everybody else they'd subpoenaed. Of course, Bob Barr wasn't subpoenaed. He gave a well, maybe he was for and I have a transcript of what he said. Maybe. Okay, but not everybody was. Sure shooting, not the current Attorney General. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is reviewing the possible mismanagement of federal government's investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell. This is not their investigation because they're not doing an investigation per se on what was done in the previous iterations of investigations, but this is just saying, hey, we've got our antennae up and we need some answers. And so, of course, she's the person who's in the public domain right now, and so they're going to go and tie her to the whipping post. So the circumstances and subsequent investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein's death, the operation of the sex trafficking rings, and ways for a federal government to effectively combat them, the way in which Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell sought to carry favor and exercise influence to protect their illegal activities, and potential violations of ethics rules related to elected officials. Those are a lot of allegations that have not been proven. Do we know it's a trafficking ring? We assume it is. Don't know. Are there people? Did he, in all likelihood, break the Mann Act? I'm pretty sure he did. Now, I just want to know from the outraged Democrats who've been watching this and are outraged that he was trafficking and or bringing over of age or 16, 18-year-olds across state lines, where their outrage was when Hunter Biden was doing the same thing, for which he had broken multiple laws. They were nowhere. There were no people braying for the investigation into the cocaine at the White House. They were not talking about the Russian the Russian hookers. They were not talking about somebody being so enslaved to drugs and moving in circles with his father, then the president. They didn't say squat then. They didn't say anything. So now it kind of looks funny when you when you didn't say anything, and all of a sudden Now you're saying something. And Ron Wyden is freaking out. Oh, my goodness. There have been people who have been taken out. This report has been redacted. This report alleging that Jeffrey Epstein had some involvement in a drug ring. And we're supposed to be outraged. The guy's dead. And he was probably moving a heck of a lot more than that. But we don't even actually know. The DEA, we don't know if it's true because the DEA dropped the case. See, that's what's wrong with the Epstein file. That's what's wrong with people saying, well, his name's in there. Obviously, he's guilty of something. No, that's actually not quite how it works. You've got millions, 3.5 million documents in the Jeffrey Epstein file, which isn't really a file. It's just a bunch of files, PDFs, notes, things that have been put on computer, screened in, or what am I trying to say? Making sure that you get it on digital. Okay. So you do that, and now they're there. What if there's nothing there? Exactly. What if there's nothing there? So no, it's not all lies. 26 women all telling similar stories pattern, and all the kids. Epstein must also be innocent also now. No, I think he had lots of relations with people who were probably not of consent age. I'm not sure he was doing a kitty, diddler thing, but some of the girls allegedly were underage for sure. And here's one of the reasons why this thing cannot be brought up on this one. Let's see, I'll make sure. This one document that I guess I'll figure this one out. Here's part of the document that Ron Wyden upset because it's a redacted report, right? And he's like, you know what? We've got Jeffrey Epstein's name. We got it all over here. We don't know. Hey, look at this. Jeffrey Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. It's all on this thing. Well, what does it mean? What it doesn't mean. And he's saying, oh, look at all the redactions. This is terrible. Yeah, okay. But, here's the by phrase that the DOJ operates by because it's in the law passed by the Congress about the Jeffrey Epstein transparency files. And it's this: redactions of victims' names and other identifying information have been applied. In audio files, redactions of victims' names and other identifying information have been implemented through the use of a steady, solid tone. There are redactions. There are reasons for redactions. Are they all pure reasons? I don't know yet, but I don't think, I think that Ron Wyden, who says he's been investigating this issue since 2022, and now that the Democrats are out of power, he's trying to make headlines for himself on this issue by saying, hey, you and Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, you've removed a lot of information from a story about Jeffrey Epstein. And the story goes something like this: ketamine, prostitution, the money, details of a secret DEA probe of Jeffrey Epstein. Well, if it's a secret, why is it in the news? Let me just make sure I'm all properly tied in. Yeah, I'm properly tied in, all right. We going in and out? I don't understand why. So I'll just keep talking. Ketamine, prostitution, details of a secret DEA probe of Jeffrey Epstein that isn't so secret anymore now, isn't it? And they got and divined enough information from the redacted file to determine that the DEA in a special Federal Drug Enforcement Administration task force began an investigation into a New York, New Jersey drug ring back in 2011. And then it involved an informant who told authorities that Jeffrey Epstein was involved. And the informant told the authorities that Epstein was involved in the illicit funding and distribution of so-called club drugs, including ecstasy, ketamine, and methamphetamines, according to the people who were asked not to be named to discuss sensitive law enforcement matters. Beg your pardon. So this thing starts in 2011, and after Jeffrey Epstein's name becomes more prominent, because remember now he was indicted in Palm Beach in 2008. He had that sweetheart deal that he made with the feds because he was intelligence. And then, of course, in addition to that, Palm Beach had previously investigated him and were appalled at what happened. That's when the president, or now president, then regular old guy, billionaire dude, Donald Trump called them and said, thank you for getting this guy off the road, just getting this dude out. He's a bad dude. Okay, so good enough. So 2015 comes along and they go, a source, CHS maybe, has confidential human source or something. Oh, and even less than a source, an informant told authorities that Epstein was involved. Okay, maybe he was. It wouldn't surprise me if he were. Sure, it's classless and gross, but on the other hand, it's better to sell drugs than humans, as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong for some of you, but I think that's drugs. Drugs is bad, humans is worse. So the individuals named in the document related to the investigation, according to the people, including Epstein's accountants, attorneys, and European women who worked as his assistants or fashion models, believe it or not. Yes, no, there was a company that Jeffrey Epstein started and had these two women running back in the day. One's an airline pilot, and the other one was running, one of his two companies, one of which was one was a PR firm, and the other one was, SLK Designs, a renovation firm, and Avaloop, a website selling discounted flying lessons and other things. And she apparently availed herself of Avaloop's deal and got herself some discounted flying lessons. So let's rejoin this story then. And this story is the one I was just reading from. It was about Jeffrey Epstein famously cultivating high-profile connections with Wall Street executives, politicians, royalty, and he was allegedly a target in this investigation, which was later dropped. Okay, so beginning in 2009, when Epstein was released from state custody in Florida and pleading guilty to charges that included soliciting a minor for prostitution, at least 8 U.S. government agencies, including the FBI, the DEA, the U.S. Treasury Department, and State Department Diplomatic Security Service, conducted their own investigations into Epstein, according to various documents that the DOJ released in January. And those documents show that law enforcement agencies kept tabs on Epstein by tracking his movements, building dossiers on his connections, and following his money as it moved through offshore accounts. This is also another reason why Ron Wyden, the third senator from New York, is curious, because he wants to get after an individual who is mentioned in some of the Epstein files who helped bankroll some of his antics, bad, good, or indifferent. And so he wants to make sure somebody looks into that connection. And because, after all, there were many SARS reports and et cetera on Epstein, money management and that sort of thing, or the women involved in these organizations and companies working for Epstein, okay? And so the SARS reports were coming in, and there were a couple of them. And so Ron Wyden invokes the idea of the SARS reports. These are reports that banks get, and that means that there's something real creepy about the money being moved here. Sorry. And so this, I'm blanking on what the SARS acronym means at the moment, but I'll get it. But what makes me laugh is that the Biden family, especially Hunter Biden, had multiple SARS reports leveled against them, invoked against them. It's all in the it's all in the Hunter Biden laptop. And the book that was put out by Marco Polo about, in fact, I should probably have it up here. It's don't buy it if you are a slave to pornography. Do not buy that. Okay, I'm just suggesting to you, save yourself, because woo, that thing is something else. But okay, Ron Wyden, he didn't care. He didn't care. Hunter Biden was flying hookers all over the country. And, people are going, well, Jeffrey Epstein was flying hookers all over the country. We must get upset. Yes, of course. On their behalf, we do get upset. But just let's not pretend that it wasn't happening. Okay? Let's not say that, it was worse because it was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is a nihilistic bore who is a creep beyond. And now he dead. And nobody knows exactly. And I remember last week when I played you the highlight of this interview I did 2 years ago, and Conrad Black says, I said, do you think he killed himself? Because that was kind of we were still doing the did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself thing. And Conrad Black said, I think it's 50-50 chance. Yeah, it's a friend of his. Oh, let's see, what is this? I love the thought that the future textbooks will feature photographs of conservatives who stood up for the pedos the way MLK stood up for black people. Oh, very funny. That's, you do have a wonderful case of projection going there. I think that's very interesting. Who's standing up for pedos, by the way? Who's doing that? That would not be me. No, sorry. Okay, so this case goes on. I'm getting lots and lots and lots of details in this let's see, what is this? Bloomberg story. So I'm getting lots of details about how the OCDEFT, that was the task force, was defunded and shut down by the Trump administration, and how it stopped short this Jeffrey Epstein thing, allegedly. That's what that they don't actually make that connection with direct evidence. They just leave it out there hanging as if Donald Trump shut it down. You know what they did? They shut down this particular task force out of the DOJ and then sent it over to DHS. So it wasn't shut down. It was actually moved. But Bloomberg didn't tell you that. Yeah, anyway. So Operation Chain Reaction is the name of the operation. And they closed it. I'm going to get to the bottom of this because it tells you. It's like, oh, yeah, and by the way, blah, 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 in the last two paragraphs of the story. It's just, it always pays to read all of the stories that the mainstream media put out about these things, because you're always going to get something interesting in paragraph 24. Chain Reaction, which was the name of the op by the feds, grew to involve other agencies, including the IRS, the Homeland Security investigations. Oh, so Homeland Security was already involved, and they just put everything at Homeland Security, state and local police, and it continued for another 8 years. Final case from the larger investigation that began in 2011 centered, so it was going before 2011 then. Then it was sort of hyped up, 2011. Then in 2015, they decided that Jeffrey Epstein's name was involved. Now, if you're running guns for bad guys and terrorist organizations and or the good guys like CIA or Mossad or somebody, if you're doing that, as it is suspected that Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and financing these kinds of deals with his banking friends and the multi-billionaires with whom he did business and acted as a financial guru, that it doesn't surprise you that maybe drug running was part of the deal, because you got to launder all the money. I'm not saying that I think it's right, obviously. I'm just saying that that's what happened. Okay, so then prosecutors later dropped. Okay. They have to bring up this guy who's a member of the Genovese crime family named John Tortora. He was indicted in 2018 and charged with his alleged involvement in a murder for hire plot. Now, do we have Johnny T? That's who he's known as, Johnny T. Does he say anything about Jeffrey Epstein? No, we don't know. But they really want you to leave. They want to leave the impression that, boy, Jeffrey Epstein should have been rolled up in this whole thing. And on April 4th, 2019, a few months before Epstein was arrested and charged with sex trafficking, the OCDETF, who gave that acronym, launched a separate operation with the FBI called TripNut, a money laundering and human and drug trafficking investigation tied to Russian organized crime that was linked back to FBI DEA probes in 2017 and 2018. And that's Epstein's name surfaced repeatedly in that case as well. The people said who are unnamed. Operation Chain Reaction officially closed in 2023 during the Biden administration. It wouldn't look right. You know, it's like you're giving your son a pardon for all y'all, for all this stuff. And Jeffrey Epstein, on paper, did less than Hunter Biden that you can get him on. I mean, they got Hunter Biden on IRS, gun charges, and they could have gotten him on the Mann Act. They could have gotten Jeffrey Epstein on the Mann Act, too, if they'd applied themselves to do this. But there you go. Okay. So that's that story. Yeah, I know. Look, amaze your friends that you know this, okay? Amaze them. Who's getting death threats? Oh, wait, I love the idea. Yeah. I don't understand that. Oh, was Trump's original plane the Lolita Express? Did he buy it from Jeffrey Epstein? Okay. Well, he got his own plane then. So how am I wrong again? You're a simp. Trump bought the Lolita Express, misspelled. He at least wrote bought correctly, so that's good. Let's see. Trump is the greatest president ever in this world. Melania should be deposed. She's all over the files. Yeah. So's the word the, but it doesn't necessarily mean you ought to indict the. What I'm saying is, don't be so besotted with the idea that Donald Trump is going to be. Trust me, as I've said countless times before, if there were something in the Epstein files, remember, because during this whole 4-year period of the Biden administration, most of it anyway, there were the right was going, hey, what about the Epstein files? And we were like thinking, good grief, what's in those things? What's happening with this stuff? Let's find out what's in them. Trust me, they had access to them. The Biden DOJ had access to them. After everything they did to Trump, you don't think that if there was something actionable and illegal about what Trump did in the Epstein files, that they wouldn't have brought it up? Are you kidding me? Did you see how many years they tried to get that guy into prison for something he didn't do? Do you see the number of times they had to make stuff up, extend the laws so they could go back and reanimate a particular case to make stuff up on issues of accounting? I mean, this is just absurd. About saying something and having it be an opinion, because even presidents have First Amendment rights, and then weaponizing and criminalizing it. That's what all the stuff they did to Trump. Let's not forget the censorship. Let's not forget the fact that the Democrats did everything within their power to stop him. Remember, resist? So you can best believe, my man, if Donald Trump had done anything illegal that they could find and it was actionable in the Epstein files, they wouldn't have needed that fake case out of the SDNY in New York City. They wouldn't have needed that fake case in Georgia. They wouldn't have needed any of it. They could have just sent him to prison on the Epstein stuff. But there wasn't any. And nobody wants to say that. But I will tell you that even the, Discord channels, even the websites that are combing crawling through the Epstein files, they can't find anything on Donald Trump except this fake 2011. I say fake because she later said she was lying. And so you really do have to wonder about what it is. You cannot be so moved by somebody's name being in the Epstein files or these files, these documents, because it doesn't mean much unless there's something that's actionable with them. But you can go through them. You can find them. Yeah. Yep. Okay. He could live anywhere in this world, retired with all the money in the world, choose to fight for America, for the United States, making sure that we have our sovereignty and our resources. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Donald Trump didn't need this job, but I'm going to tell you something. There is a way in which people, oh, hey, Niels is here. I didn't see you. I'm sorry, Niels. There's an old-fashioned kind of way that people were brought up, especially people with means. And the people with means, I read this in Katharine Graham's book a million years ago. She was the owner and operator of the Washington Post, publisher. Back in the old days, people, if they had means, they'd work a little bit, and then because their family had so much money, they didn't have to work, and that's when they committed themselves to public service. And that was just the way that's the way it was, and that was Donald Trump's era as well. That's what they did, and that's what he's doing now. So, all right, here's another one. So we've gone through the Pam Bondi situation. We've gone through what the third senator from New York, Ron Wyden, says is missing, and how we'd like to have more free exchange of ideas from the Epstein files with respect to this drug case. And then there's this. There's this piece of poo. And this piece of poo is the story about Epstein and how he lured girls to his Zorro Ranch. And a person I like to have on the program who will just state flatly what he thinks about things as a person who's been in the police business as a private investigator for years. So Nils Gravelius, who is the author of his upcoming book, The Last Lawman. Welcome back to the Adult in the Room podcast live stream. Thank you so much. I didn't see you there. I would have gone to you earlier. I apologize. How are you?
I'm lovely and perfect. Thank you, Victoria. I thought you had put me on the side of a milk carton or something.
I'm so sorry.
I was going to hire myself to find me on your show.
Oh, man. Tell me, we talk about this one particular ookity story from the Epstein files, and it's how Jeffrey Epstein lured these girls to the ranch. And it is grotesque, of course.
Well, how did that occur? Isn't New Mexico called the land of entrapment or the land of enchantment?
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to Johnny T.
The
La Cosa Nostra.
Yeah, sure.
I think he's friends with Nicholas Tartaglione. And Tartaglione was Jeffrey Epstein's cellmate up until 4 hours before Jeff went to room temperature.
Really?
Oh, yes. Nicholas Tartaglione was a police officer on Long Island up for 4 cartel hits.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm not saying that Tartaglione killed Epstein, but what if
I understand.
I mean, to Lord Black's point, Victoria, what if Nicholas puts his arm around Jeff in the cell there and he says, things could get rough here, Jeff. It'd be especially annoying if I had to do you. So it'd be better if you did you rather than me doing you, because you won't like the way that I get around to doing you if I have to do you. So don't do you so that I don't have to do you, or something like that. something like, it'd be a terrible shame if your dry cleaners caught fire for lack of protection in a neighborhood like this, Ms. Taft.
How does a guy, okay, so it doesn't surprise you then, I would imagine, that Jeffrey Epstein might have been investigated for ties into running drugs, because it's believed widely that he was running weapons for bad guys and for intelligence organizations because they need somebody to launder their money.
Well, but potentially, I know for certain that he was moving teenage girls around. So marketing of narcotics and young women sort of goes hand in hand, sort of like Reese's peanut butter cup, if you'll pardon the pun. Mm-hmm. And pretty much everything that Jeff could get away with, Jeff and Ghislaine could get away with in the Caribbean, they could get away with in New Mexico. Remind me again who the governor of New Mexico was. Wasn't it no less a man than Bill Richardson?
Bill Richardson, yes.
Close friends with
the Clintons.
With former governor and attorney general of Arkansas when CIA assets were running cocaine into the United States through a tiny airport in Mena, Arkansas. Isn't that how that occurred?
Yeah.
And then when the San Jose Mercury News breaks the story in 1995, 96, you'd think that President Clinton would sick Chelsea Clinton's father on the case, Janet Reno. I mean, Janet Reno could probably do something about that. You know, she was all about protecting children, as you'll recall, but nothing ever occurred. It was super weird. It was amazing how weird it was.
You mean burning them or sending them back to Cuba?
Well, that's a horse of a different stripe. That zebra that you're inviting me to ride with you now. Now, Victoria, what I think is that Jeff was running an intelligence honey trap, probably for CIA and MI6. It was probably a joint venture. If you look at Bob Maxwell, who is Ghislaine's daddykins, daddykins escaped Checo in the 1930s and went immediately to work for the British military as a refugee, which is kind of amazing. It's great stuff. And then he was in quote unquote media after that. I think he was friends with Rupert Murdoch of all people, but he looks like MI6. Okay, that's what it looks like to me. If this was an Israeli operation, there'd probably be dead bodies everywhere. You know, some people think this is Israeli, and so I'm thinking MI6, CIA, and then when Prince Andrew blunders into it in like 2004, 2005, 2006, they have to shut it down because MI6 can't have anything to do with something where the royal family gets stepping into the muck and poo, as my friend Victoria likes to say. So of course he would be running an operation in New Mexico, the land of entrapment, because it's a safe haven. Who's going to go after him? I mean, if you look at New Mexico to this very day, they have an enormous narcotics trafficking problem just in Bernalillo County, which encompasses Albuquerque. I mean, they have one of the highest rates of fentanyl addictions in the entire nation, considering the size of that city. And their governor likes to virtue signal over her opposition to the all things Trump. And then these idiots who keep commenting on your feed talking about conservatives protecting pedos, that's just the newest psyop launched by the Democrat cult, by idiots like George Lakoff and James Carville and those assholes, if you'll pardon me for using some Anglo-Saxon vernacular on your show. That's all that is. When Donald Trump was out of power, they could have saddled him with this and sunk him to the bottom of the sea if they had even one grain of evidence, and they had nothing, and they don't have anything because Donald Trump is the man who went after this man.
Yeah, he did, but boy, that really makes the left very, very, very angry.
Well, it shovels a fresh load of sand into their Speedos, and they don't like it. It displaces the potato they have to hang in there to look manly.
Let us go to this story. This is the one that I wanted to ask you about because, not because he likes Irish wolfhounds, but because at least 10 girls, women, young women, allege that starting in the mid-90s, Epstein groomed or abused them at the ranch. Do you know what he was doing there with these girls at the ranch? Was this his run-of-the-mill, I want a massage kind of a situation? Or is this, you said something about honeypots.
Honey trap.
Honey traps,
But I
I'm
think
sorry.
it was just part of the same operation. I think he was the hotelier and the case officer was Ghislaine Maxwell. He's running a format for the people who like to go skiing in Vail and Taos. It's a little closer than the Caribbean. Think of all the amazing people who show up for these business conferences with the Orifice of Omaha and things like that. I don't want to accuse Warren Buffett of being involved in this, Victoria, but it's that crowd of uber wealthy people who are the target for the operation. That way they can exploit their telephones. They can use them to gain entree to other people. All of these wealthy people are transnational in their investment. And it's a perfect thing. If I were running CIA, I'd run an operation like this. I just wouldn't use teenage girls for it. Jeffy Jeff, though, knew how to lure them in almost like some sort of an internet pornography operation. He knew how to groom them. He knew how to shape them. He knew how to reward them. He knew how to punish them. And let's be very frank in this, Victoria. If Jeffrey Epstein were African American, he would be called in modern argot a pimp.
Right. Okay.
Everybody calls Jeffy Jeff a pimp. Jeff was a pimp. Okay. And the case officer was, again, in my opinion, Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I'm going to point something out. DEA is part of the Department of Justice. It's not an independent organ of the Department of Justice. You remember in February of 25, when the FBI humiliated our attorney general by pretending to turn everything over to her, the gist
right.
of the Epstein case. And
all of it was up at SDNY?
Yeah, hung her out to dry. So it's all sitting up at Southern District of New York under the control of Jim Dennehy, special agent in charge, Southern District of New York. He's not going to release any of that. Let's talk about Dennehy for a moment. Dennehy didn't specialize in banking fraud investigation. He didn't specialize in organized crime investigations. Dennehy didn't go after children being trafficked. Jim Dennehy was a counterintelligence man from start to finish. And when Bondi ordered him publicly called him out and ordered him to release this stuff, he didn't resign the case. He didn't resign the office that he was in. He quit the FBI because he knew that this was the keys to the kingdom. Okay, this is what he was protecting. And the reason that not all of the Epstein material will ever make it to the surface, and when it does, when it bubbles to the surface of the toilet or whatever, you have all of these mincing, mendacious minions of the left trying to pick it apart, looking for seeds of nourishment from the monster's spore. The reason that, it's reached mythology status, we will never know the extent of it. So in context, let's know what it was. It was a honey trap. And somebody blundered into it, and they had to shut down the operation. They derived a lot of intelligence from this, both us and MI6, if MI6 was involved. And they have to protect the information that they derived from it. They have to protect the operations that came downstream as the result of it. And we will never get the full extent of it. Here we are, 63 years after JFK got gunned down by an American communist in Dallas. And the Justice Department is still sitting on a whole lot of material, and so is the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
What was the CIA doing in Dallas? The CIA had Oswald under surveillance to identify his playmates and did not understand the nature and extent of the threat that he posed. He had already tried to assassinate General Walker with the same rifle he used to kill JFK. And if you look at all the conspiracy material that came out after Oswald got, retired by Jack Ruby, it mostly centers around a man named Mark Lane. Mark Lane wrote a series of books to provide an alibi to the hard left of this country. He was an American communist who was briefly in our Congress. He was a lawyer and a writer. He is ground zero for all this conspiracy material. I'm going to give you an example of the nature and extent of Mark Lane's reputation, what motivated him, what floated his boat. He was the last surviving man to see Jim Jones in the jungle of Guyana because he was Jim Jones' attorney.
Oh,
He
man.
met Jones the day before Congressman Ryan got gunned down on the runway in Guyana, and Jim Jones ordered all of his followers to baptize their tonsils in poisoned Kool-Aid. Okay? And so that's what we're dealing with. The legend, the mythology protects and creates ambiguity.
Right.
For the hydra that exists in the bowels of Washington, D.C.
Okay. So you think that what you're saying about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is that he's a honey trap guy. But how did he get that much money? Was it because he was still able to use Les Wexner's money and to be able to do this other gentleman's money that Ron Wyden wants to have more information about? Millions, hundreds of millions of dollars he had at his disposal to use to bankroll some of this stuff.
How much did the State Department pay Blackwater to protect diplomats in the Middle East from 2001 forward? Hundreds of millions of dollars. Am I wrong? Am I missing something?
No.
Jeffy Jeff couldn't even write a comprehensive, cogent letter. He was functionally illiterate, okay? So his talent was in recruiting talent, and that's it. So the money that he had control of was filtered through various hands, and it was used to operate the honey trap. And you'll notice Ghislaine Maxwell has citizenship in France, the UK, the EU, all of this. Why did she come to the United States when everything blew up, even though she knew she was going to go to jail? Okay? She was the case officer. She came here to be protected, not imprisoned. And she's still trying to figure out her way out of jail now so she can live, maybe in the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard or some other place where nothing bad can happen to her,
Well, we were talking to, replaying part of my interview with Lord Conrad Black, and he says, hey, she didn't have to even come to the United States. She could have stayed in France.
I'm paraphrasing him, and he's paraphrasing me.
Yeah.
He is correct. That's what this was. And people keep thinking about, the obvious horrible part, the trafficking of young women. But what was really going on here was some typical human intelligence operation to exploit, to develop this, to develop that. Remember, in the age of USAID and the striped pants bastards at the State Department, they would use things like this to make this country do that and that country do this. And we're going to go bomb the crap out of Serbia in 2000, and we need some backing for this, and we're going to get that done, and that sort of thing.
Right.
So that is what we have going on here. And they've been soaping each other's backsides since you and I were little children, okay? And the older generation, the World War II gen, were a little more flinty about what it was that they did. This crowd grew up on Prozac and cannabis gummies and, Romper Room and Fred Rogers giving them a lecture on how to be kind to each other while you slit throats and things like that. I am wildly unimpressed with the national security and criminal justice apparatus at the top that handled this the way that they did. It was obvious to me what Epstein was doing. Acosta, the U.S. attorney in Florida, said in 2008, yeah, it was an intelligence operation. Okay, so everything after that is suspect.
Right.
We're never going to get to the bottom of it because it has a dark, stinky, muddy bottom.
Yeah. I can't imagine why, if the CIA is running an op and they need somebody to finance it, and Mr. I can get you anything and I'll finance that for you, but I'm going to have to use my back
Okay, so when we want
stuff.
to fund the Contras, we deal cocaine all over the United States, right? We did
Right.
that, didn't we?
Jeffrey Epstein was involved in Iran-Contra. He was helping to put the deal together for the CIA.
Well,
right?
much like the later parts of it. So,
Right.
if that stuff is true, I'm not sure that it is, but I'm very
It's
certain.
surmised.
Okay, so I'm very certain that cocaine was being flown into Mena, Arkansas, when Bill Clinton was AG of Arkansas and governor of Arkansas, and being spread all over the southeastern United States. And there was a trail of dead bodies all over Little Rock. And I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton killing them. I mean actual people, the cases that I'm aware of people being murdered and dumped in that river over cocaine. Bill Clinton's brother was a cocaine trafficker. Bill Clinton pardoned his own brother, Roger Clinton, when he was leaving the presidency in 1999 or 2000. Okay. This is the depth of the Hydra. This is what we're dealing with. If someone's looking for a perfect solution, they're going to be sadly disappointed here, Ms. Taft.
I think so. It's so murky.
Let's pretty good the enemy of perfect.
Right.
And look at these idiots, these bot people, these shills for the Democrat cult, calling conservatives pedo protectors after all the garbage that Hunter Biden got away with and Bill Clinton got away with and everything. It's just the biggest pile of garbage in the world. What they miss most of all is their loss of power. And the way that they exerted power was with a tame petting zoo media that did whatever it could to whitewash on the one hand and Marx wash on the other hand. Look at what they're doing to Cesar Chavez right now.
Yes.
Their reason for going after Cesar Chavez as an icon is because he was wildly against illegal aliens. So it's time to destroy that man's legacy. We have some woman claiming that she bore 2 children of his and just gave them away magically. This is one of the stalwarts of the hard left labor union movement in the Western U.S. She just gave 2 children away and never called the police and said, "Oh, I've been assaulted by Cesar Chavez," that sort of thing. So you have the usual white chicks with dreadlocks in their hair who call him Cesar Chavez and all of this other stuff. They're out there right now. They've sent their mincing, mendacious minions out with crowbars to take his name off of the elementary schools and post offices. And Cesar Chavez Avenue in Los Angeles is about to become Brooklyn Avenue all over again because the man has been proscribed, like in George Orwell's 1984. What was bad is good, and what was good is now horrifying. And we must absolutely launder our past.
I'm glad you see it that way. Of course, that comes up yesterday, and I was going to mention it today, and I'm glad you did. I happen to know somebody who was a good friend and an attorney for Cesar Chavez, and so I've asked him to comment on this because my guess is that he never saw any of this, but I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he did.
So if Cesar Chavez had this relationship with Ms. Huerta, whereby she bore him 2 children, but she accuses him of rape, right? Okay. Ms. Huerta's in her 90s now. Cesar Chavez risked his life fighting the Okies and Portuguese of Central California, trying to organize those farms. They could have killed him, right? So he risks his bacon. He was a hero of the authentic labor movement of working people. He didn't want illegal aliens coming in and competing for those jobs, okay? So, yes, of course they're going to trash Cesar Chavez now. I mean, the man risked his bacon, and now they turn on him. Like, they're trash. They're utter trash, Ms. Taft.
Yeah, I kind of wonder that of course, the left, when they were beatifying him, never talked about him going down to the border and beating the crap out with his guys, his union guys, of the illegal aliens who tried to come over. They never talked about that. And so now all of a sudden they, as you rightly point out, we must retcon his entire history.
You must retcon it, and you will also, if you look in some of his writings and past words, you will see Cesar Chavez using the now proscribed term wetback to characterize illegal aliens. Angry man, you bet he was an angry man. He had a constituency to protect. He's not my cup of tea politically, but I perfectly understand what the hell he did and what the value of it was to working Americans.
Yeah, and now they're trying to trash him and cancel him. Right. It is amazing. It is amazing. We'll do a deep dive on that later when I get my friend on it because, he was his attorney. He traveled with him, stayed with him, multiple. I mean, periods of time and during the years. And
I need a favor from you, Victoria.
yes, dear.
Do you think you could ask Lord Black to review my book?
I could, if I can get in touch with him. I mean, I've asked his PR person if he can come back. If I have contact with him again, I
have a lot of family in Canada. My great-great-grandfather was the man who trademarked Canadian bacon.
Really? Oh, that's
Really?
hilarious.
Yeah, Billy Harris. He was the single largest employer on the north shore of Lake Ontario. Him and his brother converted Toronto from a fur trading outpost full of drunk Indians into a city. So, I think that Lord Black would probably have something to say about my book. And I'd also like to get a copy into your hands so that you can peruse it.
I would love it. Yes.
Okay.
We'll do that. We'll make sure that we can do that. Nils, thank you so much. He is the author of the upcoming The Last Lawman. And if you like his plain spokenness with that sort of noir accent of all of it, he's your guy. In fact, it's because of you that I made sure that my voice for my Waze GPS is in a noir PI voice. So there you go, because you make me laugh.
Lock and load, darling. It's going to be a long patrol.
Right on. I got it. Thank you, Nils Gravelius. So thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it. Thank you for being so patient and waiting for me. Yeah. It's one of the reasons I like to have him on, just because he is not dumb. He's smart. Okay, that's it. And he's fun. And he's funny. And he's clever. And he has something to say that he can say in the proper English with a lot of noir thrown in. Okay. Now we've sort of exhausted the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. Holy crow, we really are. It was actually a week of small stories that have culminated to create a large Jeffrey Epstein Thursday edition of the Adult in the Room podcast. But there is something even, I would say, I would have led with it, but because I know people expect the Epstein Thursday, I put it off till now, and it is this. And then we'll wrap up with this because I think it's important. Did anyone take a look at the resignation of Joe Kent? We talked about it on Tuesday. Did you take a look at this interview that he did with Tucker Carlson? Don't worry if you haven't. Don't worry. I will say, I am glad that my attempt to cancel Tucker Carlson was forestalled. They just charged me for my yearly Tucker Carlson thing that I subscribed to right after he got blown out by Fox News. And I said, okay, I'm going to support him. I think he's clever and he's wonderful. And honest to goodness, this is just this whole byplay between Joe Kent, Tucker Carlson, and now he's going to go on Candace Owens. And Joe said in his resignation letter that he believed that Israel is calling the shots on the Iran war. And of course, naturally, he has said exactly the opposite in years past. But I want to give you a flavor for some of the more eye-popping things he had to say. Let us start here on the so-called fatwa that Joe Kent swears that Iran lives by. Listen.
Focused on this question of imminent threat, because that's...
Do you know what a fatwa is? A fatwa is a ordinance. It's a declaration made by an imam saying that we hate you and we're going to come after you, novelist. Or we, in this case, allegedly, the fatwa was, hey, we're not going to create a nuclear bomb. And we'll go into that after you hear Joe talk about it.
Really the only justification I think most Americans would accept for a preemptive war.
Certainly.
Otherwise, just like a war of choice done because Bibi told you to, and no one wants to get behind that because it's obviously illegitimate. So imminent threat.
I just had to bring up that comment because,
on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon.
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region, and their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya.
Okay, so Joe's talking here about the reasons why he thinks that the Iranians weren't going to create a nuclear bomb, even though they were at 60% of the, I guess, I'm trying to grow up for the actual correct word. I'll get it in a second. Where, 20% of nuclear energy will, you can run anything on that. But if you want to get to weapons grade, you have to go to 90%. And from 60%, you can get to 90% like really fast. So Joe Kent and many other people in the Trump administration knew that, of course, that's what they wanted. This is a country, a juggernaut country that has more fossil fuels than multiple countries put together. It is a juggernaut. It is. And it's one of the reasons why we've had sanctions on Iran oil for years. Because, don't sell it. They sell it to places where they shouldn't, or we say you can't sell it to China, or you can't sell it to Pakistan, or you can't sell it to India, you can't sell it to Russia. And we put sanctions on the Iranian oil, which is why they have to sell it for a cut rate to China and other places. And so Trump's going, oh, no. We want the good people of Iran to have control over that oil. And that's his plan. That's the big plan. So it's 3 weeks in, and Joe left his office yesterday? No, I'm sorry, Tuesday. And it was like, dude, what are you doing? Aren't you just messing the nest when you leave? Why are you doing that? You know that you've said exactly the opposite previously. You've said that Iran is one of the baddest and worst actors on the face of the earth, that it is the number one state sponsor of terror. You've said that. You've been in battle and in combat against Iranian-backed terror groups. How can you now say that, we just didn't think there was any problem with what they were doing, that we didn't think there was an imminent threat, which is not required, by the way, to invoke either the ability to go to war with or without the Congress for 60 days. You don't need imminent threat. Is just some words that somebody's put. It sounds good. It's not something that we have to deal with. The president has the ability, and I'll bring this up, to do this. And he's on solid ground. And couple of things I want you to see here in this post on Substack. Julie Kelly put it up. It is a legal opinion. The War Powers Resolution adopted by Congress in 1973 is what the Congress says, okay, we don't want you guys going into any wars without our approval. And this is what has to happen. The War Powers Resolution requires the withdrawal of troops from hostilities in 60 days, and it didn't apply in many other affairs. In fact, it hasn't really, the Congress has not been involved in calling and declaring war since World War II. There have been any number of battles, in fact, all of which, you've got things in the Balkans that Clinton did, the how many countries? 14 countries that Barack Obama bombed. There are a lot of things that have happened without the consent of Congress. And this is one of them, although Trump did bring in his Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief, and he also, of course, has the statutory authority to do that. And he has the statutory authority to do that under this legal opinion because of the AUMF. Oh, the AUMF. And that is the one thing that we use to go after the authorization for use of military force. And I think that was written by John Yoo, if I'm not mistaken, in 2001. And they said, okay, you have the blanket authority to go after the bad actors. You got it. Well, who do you think Iran has been helping for all these years? The bad actors. Not only are they helping them, they're providing them with weapons. They have shot up, put IEDs on the ground. You know, it is astonishing how many people have forgotten that Iran has been running a proxy war against the United States for, 47 years? Is that what we're calling it now? So the president has the authority to do this. Just because Democrats say he doesn't right now because they don't like him doesn't mean that he doesn't have the authority to do it. Am I excited about the fact that we're doing this? No, I'm not. Am I excited that some of those bastards are being wiped off the face of the map? Yes, because they're a bunch of nutter 12ers. So I'm of two minds on this whole thing. I just don't want ground troops to go. And, it looks like we're going to have Marines going on some of these islands because they're they're steaming toward the area of operation. Okay. And they're likely to take over Karg Island. So if we get Karg Island, get control over Karg Island, that's a game, set, and match. Because that means that you're in charge of the gas and oil in Iran. Now, why do I say all that? Because Joe Kent is just rushed over to take a plane after he left office. And I like Joe, by the way. I just think this was a bad look, man. It is a distraction. Why the hell are you doing this? Do you think you're the only man saying that we don't want anybody to really conduct war right now? No, you're not the only one. However, why are you hiding the way you feel, if in fact you're lying now or lying then? What changed? What changed? Well, he says that he thinks that the Israelis are the ones dictating the state of play in the state of war.
Good party that's in power and has been driving Israeli politics now for most of my adult life, they were heavily in favor of the regime change war in Iraq, which again led to Shia domination, led to the rise of ISIS, led to the rise of Al-Qaeda, and then heavily fueled the Syrian civil war. So again, this country, Israel, who they can be a good partner in some regards. I'm not anti-Israeli. I've worked with the Israelis. Again, very competent intelligence service, very wonderful people. But they have different objectives than we do. So to put them in the driver's seat of our foreign policy and to let them dictate our foreign policy is a disservice to the American people.
Okay, so that's what he says we're doing with Israel. We have put them in the driver's seat. Do you think that, I don't know, does Donald Trump appear to you to be a guy who doesn't want to be in the driver's seat? That's just not one of those things. When you think about Donald Trump, you think, dude's in charge. He wants to know everything. He puts people in charge and then holds them accountable. Come on. No, I don't think so. You think Bibi Netanyahu's in charge of the war? You know what they're doing? The Israelis are the ones killing all the bad guys. They're the ones killing the leaders because we can't do assassinations. Okay, yes. Are assassinations happening? Oh, yeah. Do we know about them? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm not a Pollyanna. I get it. But now it happens, however, that within seconds of the announcement that Joe was leaving, there began a number of stories circulating that talked about Joe leaking classified information. And this one comes from Semaphore. FBI investigates intelligence aide who resigned over war. Well, that nice picture of Joe. I mean, come on, you guys. FBI's opened a leak investigation into a top former intelligence official who resigned Tuesday in protest over the war in Iran. The investigation into former National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent is focused on allegations that he improperly shared classified information for people with direct knowledge of the investigation, told Semaphore. Okay. So we've got a more complete story, and this one's from the AP. And this is what kind of, this gave me a clue as to what he may have leaked, or is alleged to have leaked. The FBI is investigating whether Joe Kent, who resigned his position as a top counterterrorism official this week in protest of the Iran war, improperly shared the classified information. The investigation precedes Kent's resignation Tuesday from his role as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. And allegedly, some people in the intelligence apparatus said, you got to fire him. He's leaking. And Tulsi Gabbard would not fire him. And then he left. And then he decided to plant IEDs all along his path out the door. Now, we're all adults here. Okay, we're adults. We get it. We understand that we don't want another war. We just came out of the Iraq war. That's gone. We left the Afghanistan war in abject disgrace. We lost billions upon billions of dollars of military equipment. We paid off the mullahs in Iran to build their doggone bomb. We continue to pay the Taliban millions of dollars per week to run the country that we just bugged out of. Should we have been there nation building? No. Should we have stayed in Iraq to nation build? No. Got it. That's why it's another reason why the likes of Donald Trump doesn't want to do this kind of stuff. But it comes as the Justice Department has taken multiple investigations over the last year into political foes of Donald Trump, including FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. The investigation precedes Kent's resignation. So there's all sorts of things. And additional details about what the investigation, which was first reported by Semaphore, is examining were not immediately available. Kent disclosed his departure from the administration in a statement on X in which he cited concerns about the justification for military strikes in Iran and said he cannot, in good conscience, stand back and allow this war to go on. Did he ask? Did he talk about his concerns? We don't know, but he's certainly doing a lot of it to Tucker Carlson and I imagine Candace Owens, who are now completely besotted with the idea that it's the Jews doing everything bad. So this does not speak well of Joe. This is a bad look for him. I know that people want to build him into being a profile in courage, and I think he has been in the past for sure. His America First stance is laudable, but leaving the service of the United States government and then pooping in your oatmeal? No, Joe. That's not how it's done. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, he says, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby, he wrote in his resignation letter. So that kind of information, which began to be sopped up into the political water table, is what I believe he leaked. And is it a leak or is it just an opinion? Don't know. We don't know. But the fact that he is gone and was under investigation by the FBI for leaking. This investigation was allegedly started before Joe Kent left. Okay, I'll take them at their word, unless somebody does a deep dive into the documents surrounding this at some point. And I'll take the word of the Trump administration for this. But the timing of this announcement about investigating Joe Kent certainly seems a little weird. But of course, they did it right when he announced. They say, hey, we've been investigating this guy. There's a reason he's leaving. Of course, that's what they want. That's the impression they want you to leave you with. There's a reason he's leaving. And it doesn't have anything to do with his profile and courage. It has to do with what we believe is his leaking, and that's why we were investigating. And maybe Tulsi Gabbard said, hey, it's probably time to go, Joe. Probably time. Oh, let's see. Let's go to some comments. Notice the lefty cult care more about sides than anyone, but they make everything about, I don't even know what that is. I must have come in that mid-conversation. Only political cultists imagine all who oppose Trump are on the same moral high ground when they've openly shown personal bias and interest with their own prosecution. Well, that's true. I mean, that is true. So, all right. Couple more things I wanted to get to, and we'll probably unpack this more later next week. And it is the work that our friend, my close personal friend, Nick, oh God, why am I just blowing my... Nick Shirley has been in Los Angeles talking about the graft. And I just want to play this on the way out. And I will get to the Antifa funding as well, because I promised. But I just want to let you know, Nick Shirley has been a person who's got a louder bullhorn than most. A lot of this information about stories that he's commented on and amplified, these stories were out there. But because he's able to tell these stories in clear terms, to make in understandable terms, in a way that gets to more people, i.e. social media, that's why it's important. Let's take a look at Nick Shirley's latest video about what he is doing in Los Angeles. We're not getting audio. It's muted. Oh, is it really? Huh. Oh, that's no good. Well, we can't have that. I'm just going to blow it off then. That's a bummer. What a bummer. Nick's gone. Okay, fine. If we're going to do that, we just tested our sound like right before we came on. And it's like, oh yeah, everything's fine until it wasn't. I just really hate when that happens. It just drives me nuts. Okay. Here's another story that I want you to know about. And it is this. It is the declaration from Pam Bondi, bringing up Pam Bondi again. And it is the story about how she has activated people in government to begin. I'm sorry, I thought this was already begun, but nevertheless, I mean, it's better late than never, I guess, to begin the conversation, the investigation into the organizations that fund Antifa and other groups like Antifa. And so this is, let me just move this out. A friend of mine at Red State wrote this. Let me just make sure I can get it on screen for you. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Pam Bondi. Let's see, where do I have this? Hi, Chihuahua. Pam Bondi has called out the troops. This kind of news you love to hear, especially since the folks in Antifa, the organized officials in Antifa, some of whom are paid, some of whom are just rabble, some of whom are here to do what they can to bring down the system, which is the whole point of their being as anarchists and Antifa. Some people used to tell me, oh, well, anarchists aren't the same guys as Antifa. Please stop it. Don't insult my intelligence. So anyway, now she's going to call on the FBI and IRS to form a new task force, a new initiative to go look into the NGOs supporting direct actions by Antifa and other lawbreaking. They're forming a new initiative to investigate the nonprofit organizations suspected possible links to domestic terrorism. In December, Bondi ordered law enforcement agencies and federal prosecutors to prioritize efforts to investigate and prosecute groups and individuals who belong to the anti-fascist Antifa movement or are deemed extremists. Okay, so here's what we have. They've got plenty of ammo. And of course, not just Seamus Bruner doing that work. We've got this organization, and these guys are just terrific people over at Capital Research. And what they've done is gone through and determined how the funds of George Soros have been used for direct action activities. Groups, category 1, there are 3 different categories, they say. Category 1, groups that he gave money to that assist in domestic terrorism. The Center for Third World Organizing, Ruckus Society, the Blackout Collective. Those are the people for whom they take a look in the mirror. They go to that mirror and they say, what am I willing to do? Am I willing to get arrested? Am I willing to throw a bomb? Am I willing to knock the head of a cop? Am I willing to do all of that and block ICE? Am I willing to do all of it? And yes, they are. And they are receiving some of George Soros's and Alex Soros's sons $80 million that have gone to direct action Antifa and their friends organizations. Movement for Black Lives and Dream Defenders received direct action money from the Soros Foundation. And what happens is, as we've talked about before, that money comes in and they go to all these they sprinkle them all over these NGOs, right? And then they launder the money down to Antifa. Okay, that's what happens. So Soros's foundations have also given $200 million to this organization called Dissenters, another co-author of the pro-Hamas guide that was put out by the other different groups here as well. So this particular study by Ryan Maurer was done right after the Columbia University, Harvard anti-Jewish situation. So they said, okay, you guys want to hurt these people. You're doing all this anti-Semitic activity. And this is where this money is going. And so Pam Bondi has 2 very fulsome reports to go through, or her committee does, to see where this money has been going. Look at this. Here we go. 18 Million Rising got money. The Arab Center for the Advancement of Social Media, the Al Jazeera Media Network was given Soros money. Human Rights Organization, Al-Aq Human Rights Organization in Europe, Global Justice, Anti-Racism Movement. They all sound very noble, don't they? Until you find out that they're the ones at the front lines knocking heads. And they give money away to organizations, Council on American Islamic Relations in California, Council on American Islamic Relations, Florida. Here's the other one in New York. Here's another one in Dallas, Texas. Wow. George Soros money. This is not nothing. This is something. And it's you know what it's called? It's called proof. That's what it's called. It's called proof. All right. We will be back on Tuesday. I will be recharged, and I will be able to talk a little bit about our Iran SITREP, as well as other news that I believe, as your news Sherpa, should be included on the Adult in the Room podcast live stream. Listen, so please get notifications of this podcast. Would you please share it? Share it, and by all means, tell people about it. Okay? Promise? That'd be awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Adult in the Room podcast. We do not take you for granted. We appreciate every single person who tunes in every week to listen and watch this program. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, live streaming on Rumble, and then on every other podcast platform shortly thereafter when we can port it over and get it over there as soon as we can. All the shows can be found at victoriataft.com, where the censorship regime has been banned by me. Follow me on social media at these names: Victoria Taft, the Adult in the Room podcast, and the Victoria Taft Show. Send media inquiries, or any others for that matter, to victoria@victoriataft.com. And here's a big ask. Would you please subscribe, share, like, comment, recommend, and give this program a 5-star rating where you can? We really appreciate it. We do not take that for granted either. Follow my work at, you guessed it, victoriataft.com. PJ Media, I write tons over there. Flamingo Audiobooks, and of course the radio. I don't do this alone. This show is produced and engineered by Overall Media. 1A Cast is responsible for some of the Adult in the Room podcast's imaging. Logo design by Hageman Creative. The Adult in the Room podcast is produced at Flamingo Road Studios. All rights reserved.